All right. It's 6:27, and we are going to go ahead and call our regular board meeting to order. Thank you for your flexibility and patience. We did have a strategic planning meeting for those that are joining us online that ran over a bit. And so we're going to call this meeting to order at 6:27. Dr. Thomas, if you would conduct roll call.
Ms. Gallagher, Mrs. Davis,
Here.
Dr. Yeager,
Here.
Dr. Diamond,
Here.
Dr. Anderson, Dr. Gant,
Here.
Attorney Hull, and Dr. Maddox.
Here.
Thank you. We'll move forward with item 1.3, and this is our silent meditation and pledge. So if we would first pause for a moment of silence. And then if we would all that are able stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will move forward to item 2, and these are our recognitions and awards. Dr. Thomas?
Yes, ma'am. We have Dr. Porter here with a guest who will be recognizing our honorees tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas, Dr. Gant, board members. Tonight, we're announcing several awards that many deserving district students and graduates have earned over the last year. Since these awards are presented by the Foundation for Excellence in Public Education, it makes perfect sense to me to have one of their leaders on hand to make these very special announcements. Miss Mandy Burnt is the immediate past president of the foundation, but her more impressive role is mom to 5 children who are students in the Clark County School District at Barrow Elementary, Clark Middle, and next year, Clark Central. Now, I found it fascinating that while in college, and she said not to mention this, but I'm going to do it anyway, she was a national champion in track and field, heptathlon. I can't even say it. That's how good it is. But she was a national champ. Recently, she was inducted into the Trinity College's Hall of Fame. She and her husband, Dwayne, continue to run and do triathlons in their spare time. That commitment to excellence has got to help her keeping up with those 5 kids, as I mentioned before. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Mandy Burnt.
Hi, board and everyone. Good evening tonight. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I did tell him not to say that, but it's a little embarrassing. Those sports accolades are way easier than raising the 5 kids, I have to say. So, but we're honored to be part of the school district. I am here representing the Foundation for Excellence in Public Education. We have the privilege to honor our outstanding teachers, administrators, and students within the Clark County School District. And we're able to do that through our annual awards and grants. And this year we were able to, through our endowment, donate money to these deserving students, student awards that I'll be talking about, over $5,000 in prize money to them. So that's very helpful for them as they move on through their lives. The first award we gave was the Greg W. Lewis Scholar Athlete Award. And it is for those graduating GPA who are given the awards. Our female winner from Clark Central High School is McKinley Campbell, who is an outstanding woman, and I know her personally, so we're very proud of her. She played soccer, ran cross country. She will go to the University of Texas, Austin. She was also the valedictorian of her class this year. So well deserved. Our male winner was Will Fang from Cedar Shoals High School. He was also the valedictorian of his class and played football, soccer, and participated in other various activities. He will be attending Stanford University, so very impressive. The next award is our Eve Carson Humanitarian Spirit Award, and this is given to those students leaving their respective schools, so 5th grade, 8th grade, and 12th grade in each of the schools, who demonstrate generosity of spirit, unconditional positive regard for all people, acceptance, open-mindedness, genuine love, and random acts of kindness. The winners this year are from Alps Road, Cameron Barnett. Barnett Shoals is Daphne Borjas Loyola. From Barrow is Willow Selleck. From Chase Street is Brianna Elides Castro. From Cleveland Road is Michaela Hood. Fowler Drive is Diego Gonzalez Reyes. From Gaines is Lyndon Sharnice King. From J.J. Harris, Taraji Peak. From Oglethorpe, Braxton Barnett. From Stroud, Nadarius Rainwater. From Timothy, Mecky Gaines. From Whit Davis, Luca Fleener. From Whitehead Road, Cecilia Sisk. From Winterville, Sandra Ilmeda Villegas. From Bernie Harris Lyons, McKinley Dykes. From Clark Middle, Maya Sharastov. From Coyle, April Murillo Mundo. From Hillsman, Robert Chapman II. From Cedar Shoals, Ticurius Monford. And from Clark Central, Andrew Robinson. So congratulations to all of these students. Our next word is the Arthur Moog Middleton Writing Award. And this is given to students from both Clark Central and Cedar Shoals who produce compelling nonfiction or fiction writing. And they are given to Cedar Shoals High School, Violet Calkin, and Clark Central High School, Natalie Schickelman. Next is the Charlotte and Claude Williams American History Award. And those are also given to a student from both Cedar Shoals and Clark Central High School, and from the Social Studies Department. And they are from Cedar Shoals, Jennifer Jerome, and from Clark Central, Ludwig Leitrick. And our last award is the Marge Schneider Science Award. The award is presented to a graduating senior at each of the traditional high schools who is a science honors student and active in service in their community. From Cedar Shoals High School, we give the award to Knox Huff, and from Clark Central High School, Beatrice Atchison. So could we congratulate all of these students, and are very proud to be able to continue to honor our amazing students and teacher population from the foundation. So thank you for having me. Congratulations.
Our employee of the month this month is Brianna Culver. She's a school social worker at Clark Central High School and has been for the last 7 years. Mrs. Culver, her ability to build long-lasting relationships with students and staff is an enduring trademark of hers. She has an unmistakably positive presence and is quite comfortable working behind the scenes to get things done. Not one to seek the spotlight, although she's getting it tonight. Ms. Culver embraces what can be a difficult job and makes a real difference with real results. For instance, she was instrumental in the creation of the Clark Central High School's food pantry clothing closet to ensure it is stocked and ready to meet student and family needs. She's worked tirelessly on the implementation of the attendance team and the student review team, and she's co-facilitated the Bellas of Distinction Girls Group at Central for 3 years. The list goes on to include her work with the Food Bank of Northeast Georgia, many mental health and healthcare agencies, and she's also developed a special connection with Lydia's Place, an organization that works directly on the front lines to ensure homeless teens have safe and stable housing. As you can see, Ms. Culver is the epitome of what a dedicated, devoted social worker should be. Indeed, she makes the lives of our children better every day right here in Clark County. As always, this recognition comes with, of course, a $250 cash award from the Foundation for Excellence and hundreds of dollars worth of products and services from many of our loyal sponsors right here locally. Please join the district in congratulating and thanking Ms. Culver for her being an outstanding and greatly valued member of our education family. Dr. Thomas, that concludes tonight's recognitions.
Thank you, Dr. Porter and Mrs. Burnt, for those recognitions tonight. Dr. Gant, I know we are now preparing to move forward with our agenda approval. I would like to recommend prior to that we remove item 13.1 from the agenda prior to approval. Thank you.
All right, and 13.1, this is our action to approve the Train the Trainer course for restorative practices. And just to be double check, Mr. Pruitt, we it's okay to do that. We don't have to wait until after we've approved the agenda. Is that correct? Okay. All right. So we'll make a note that 13.1 is removed. All right. We will move forward to item 3. And this is to amend and or adopt the agenda. The floor is open. Mr. Davis?
I would recommend that we amend the agenda for the purposes of an executive session on personnel prior to voting on the personnel recommendations. Yeah,
Okay.
11.
All right. So for item 11, there's a motion on the floor to amend the agenda to add an executive session immediately before the personnel recommendations. Is there a second? Okay. Dr. Anderson made a second. Any discussion or questions? All right. All in favor of that amendment, if you would show by raising your hands and saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The same signs. All right, so that amendment carries. The executive session for personnel will be added to section 11. Now the floor is open for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Okay, Ms. Hull made a motion. Ms. Davis made a second. Any additional questions or discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting the agenda as amended, if you would show by raising your hands and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same sign. Okay, so that motion carries and our agenda is before us as amended. We are going to move to number 4, and these are our public comments. And Ms. Hull, Dr. Anderson, and Dr. Dykeman have graciously agreed to help me. And so I will read some letters, and then they will also read some of the letters that have been sent in. Okay, the first letter is from Ashley Nay, and it reads, Dear Board and Cabinet, first of all, as you all vote tonight on the bid for the Restorative Practices proposal of $80,000 go into that company in Pennsylvania, please share what you know about that company and its pros and cons when compared to investing in the Georgia Conflict Center and the local economy. On the subject of restorative practices, I also think that there is great restoration that needs to take place in the relationship that the board and the district hold with the surrounding community of students, parents, staff, and other stakeholders. I hope district and board leadership can begin brainstorming different ways in which the voices of the community can be held when decisions are made using our tax dollars. Second, the decision not to require masks in the school building is quite concerning to me. I understand that students and families still have the freedom to have their children wear masks in the building, but something we've learned over the course of this pandemic is that wearing a mask serves largely to protect those around us from the virus. And as a middle school teacher, I've learned a few things about the choices children may make when given the option. Imagine an unvaccinated middle school student that lives with an immunocompromised family member that has yet to be vaccinated and is sent to school due to accessibility issues to childcare, food, internet, etc., is tasked with wearing their mask throughout the day. They agree while in their home and also wear their masks as they walk out of the door and onto the bus. However, they get to school, they will see many of their peers and their classmates not wearing their masks because they are not required to do so. The student may then decide not to wear their own mask because it's uncomfortable, it makes them feel singled out, or they just don't want to that day. In this scenario, the student could then be infected with the virus at school and then bring it home to their family. It is likely that families that are not vaccinated without economic privilege will be more likely to have to send their kids to school versus others without vaccines and with economic privilege. So again, this decision could have a disproportionate effect on families already being negatively impacted by the decisions of the school district. Additionally, there is a new variant of COVID that has spread to the United States from which our current vaccines are not to protect us. I have also recently heard that the vaccine does not guarantee that those vaccinated do not pass the virus on to others. With all of this being said, I believe we should reconsider the lack of a mask mandate. And in that reconsideration, families and school district staff should be consulted or surveyed in an intentional and inclusive way. Maybe a vote to decide if we move forward with or without a mask mandate. This next letter is from Broderick Flanagan, and it reads, "Hello all, hope everyone is well. I'm reaching out to express concern for the restorative practice work that is potentially being outsourced to another company in another state. Honestly, I'm not sure how restorative practice led by any company locally or in another state impacts student achievement. From the studies I've viewed, restorative justice is given mixed reviews. The point I'm looking to make is that if we're going to experiment with restorative justice on our brilliant students, then why not keep those dollars local? There's a provider locally that has already demonstrated that the schools want to use the practice. Was there a bid process, and did our local providers know about it? I would love to see us table the vote on using outside providers to do work a local provider has already begun. Thanks for your attention to this matter. Much love." This next letter is from JoBeth Allen. First, I applaud the CCSD administration and Board of Education for its ongoing support for building restorative cultures and practices in our K through 12 schools. In-depth, ongoing commitment to these practices teaches our young people valuable life skills for living and learning together during their years of schooling and as adults in workplaces and in the broader community. As someone who worked in CCSD for nearly 3 decades, whose children attended and grandchildren now attend, excuse me, I've witnessed the need for restorative practices of building and sustaining healthy relationships, transforming conflict into opportunities to repair harm and increase empathy, and creating just and equitable learning environments, including increasing students' time in class and eliminating racial disparities in discipline. Tonight, I urge you to honor the work that has already been done by doing the following. Keep this work local by continued partnership with the Georgia Conflict Center, whose dedicated staff live and work in this community and who have made the commitment to provide training and support in person for the long haul. Do not spend money on the IIRP prepackaged program with no local ties and the same exact training for everyone. GCC tailors its training for our specific schools and communities. Learn from educators, parents, and students in schools that have been working with restorative justice principles and practices for the last 4 years. Employ tools like surveys, interviews, and focus groups. Create a dynamic, ongoing feedback, reflection, revision process that starts and stays local. Again, thank you for investing in this critical aspect of our students' growth and development. And that is Dr. JoBeth Allen. This is from Luana J. Knight, and it reads to Dear CCSD school board members, I am a 15-year veteran educator in the school district and have witnessed many changes during my time. I want to thank you all for your tireless work and effort. In light of persistent inequities and issues that have gained prominence because of the pandemic, I am excited that CCSD has made the decision to expand restorative practices to all schools in the district. It is an important step forward to address existing inequities, heal wounds, and teach everyone in the community and school district how to build relationships and work together for change. However, I do have concerns as to the way RP, restorative practices, will be implemented if the IIRP proposal is approved. I ask that you vote against the contract with the IIRP. As a member of the Restorative Culture Leadership Team, I have observed how restorative practices help build and strengthen relationships, resolve conflict, increase awareness, teach responsibility, and begin to repair harm. While the work has been hard, it has been rewarding. For restorative practices to be authentic, it takes extensive training, practice, time, patience, and ongoing support. Clark Central has engaged in the work and made important changes because of the leadership, advocacy, and guidance of Danny Malik, RP Director, and the Georgia Conflict Center. I have serious concerns about the train the trainer model of restorative practices proposed by the IRP. Authentic restorative practice training and implementation are far from basic. They are intricate steps and require significant time and hands-on support from trained professionals who are invested in our community. The amount of time for training proposed by IIRP is not enough. RP implementation is a process, and such should be warranted the time needed to become successful. The IIRP is an out-of-state organization and will not be in schools. So I question the availability and quality of support that will be provided in a digital format. Because of the importance of RP, we must have support from professionals who are readily available, and we must practice patience. As a community member, I fully expect the board to be financially responsible. It would be irresponsible to pay almost twice the amount of money for an out-of-state organization as opposed to the Georgia Conflict Center, a local nonprofit who is already building foundations, engaging in difficult work, providing support, and effecting real change in some of our schools. If CCSD students are to truly benefit from restorative practices and justice, teachers need to be trained extensively and gradually, as well as be supported locally by trained professionals. The support and leadership that have been provided by the Georgia Conflict Center has been immeasurable. And again, that is from Luana Knight. And this letter is from Grace Crumpton, and it reads, Dear CCSD school board members, I write to you as a CCSD teacher and member of the Restorative Culture Leadership Team at Clark Central High School. I am thrilled that CCSD has decided to expand the implementation of restorative practices to all schools. I have personally witnessed the change that restorative justice has brought to my own classroom and school, and I'm excited for all schools to have that opportunity. However, I have serious concerns about the manner in which we implement this training. I write to ask you to vote against the contract with IIRP. 2 years ago, I participated in a 3-day training in restorative practices brought to Clark Central by the Georgia Conflict Center. Since then, I have worked with our Restorative Culture Leadership Team and our GCC Restorative Practices Director on school-wide implementation. The intentional and incremental approach provided by GCC is essential for authentic and successful restorative practices, and the ongoing support provided by our RP director, Danny Malik, has been invaluable. After reading the IIRP proposal, I'm extremely concerned about the future of restorative practices in this district. Their approach is described in the contract as an online basic 2-day training, which would then leave 15 to 20 CCSD staff responsible for training and implementation for the rest of the district. This will not be effective in the long term. While IIRP is a reputable organization, their train the trainer model will rush the process of implementation and leave CCSD staff with little experience and little support. Furthermore, I write as a community member concerned about the financial commitment in this contract. On behalf of ACC taxpayers, it would be financially irresponsible to pay $80,000 to an out-of-state organization who will never set foot in our schools, especially considering that a local nonprofit who has been in our school for 4 years now has submitted more effective plan for only $45,000. Restorative justice work is intricate and requires significant support by a trained professional who is invested in our community. For the long-term benefit of CCSD students, I urge you to vote no to the IIRP contract and reconsider the plan proposed by the Georgia Conflict Center. Thank you for your time. Grace Crumpton.
The next letter is from Eunice Kang. Dear CCS school board members, I'm writing to thank you for all that you do, especially for your crucially important decision to move forward with district-wide implementation of restorative practices. This decision reflects our confidence that RP will be the foundation upon which CCSD will build greater educational equity for our students. As a teacher and member of the Clark Central's Restorative Culture Leadership Team, I believe that the single most important criteria for a successful implementation in all schools will be the presence of a full-time on-site coordinator on every campus. I have taught orchestra at both Clark Middle and Clark Central for 15 years, half-time at each school, and experienced firsthand that even having an RP coordinator who is half-time or shared between schools, while certainly better than none, results in a chaotic school climate and extreme frustration because half the time no one is on campus to support the process. It is for this reason that I wish to express extreme reservations about the district's choice of the IIRP Training of Trainers TOT model as described on the IIRP website. As part of the Safer Saner Schools program, the IIRP provides a cost-effective way to implement and sustain the use of restorative practices in your school or district. The TOT model is a budget-friendly discount version of their implementation program, Safer Saner Schools, yet it costs $80,000 and relies on the training of Tier 2 and 3 personnel, district-level administrators combined with the building-level teams, who then deliver this training to all staff district-wide. Even the most experienced, dedicated, and highly trained team of teachers, counselors, and administrators will not have nearly enough time to coordinate and implement restorative practices at the building level in a meaningful way. Their primary instructional and administrative duties already overwhelm their daily schedules, and adding this responsibility on top of everything else will result in lackluster, ineffective implementation at best. Without restorative practices at all schools, I fear that our district will not be able to make genuine progress towards educational equity. Although the short-term cost of hiring a full-time coordinator for every school may be somewhat high, the long-term cost of not doing it will surely be higher. The GCC model, $45,000 proposed cost, not including full-time on-site coordinators cost, is highly preferable to the TOT model because it combines having a full-time on-site coordinator with formation of a school-level leadership team. Our team at Clark Central has received the most thorough training and support throughout the past 2 years from the local Athens-based practitioners and experts. The next letter is from Jacelyn Brown, teacher. Dear CCSD School Board District Board members. My name is Jacelyn Brown and I teach business at Clark Central High School. I have 2 children who are 2016 and 2021 graduates of Clark Central High School, and I also graduated from Clark Central in 1996. I'm a second-generation educator and have worked in 3 districts to include Hancock, Barrow, and Clark. I'm in support of the CCSD expanding the restorative practice to all schools in the district. However, I have a major concern with how it has been implemented. I write today to ask you to please vote against the contract with IIRP. Since employed at Clark Central High School, I have witnessed restorative practices being put to use, and greatly applaud how some things cannot be handled differently. I have witnessed several types of discipline that is used throughout different districts. At Clark Central virtually, I've noticed a culture of student body and how they respected and responded to each other. I think this has to do mainly with the instruction of circles and advisement. Students even ask for circles to deal with conflict. I'm alarmed about the new restorative practice proposal for the following reasons. One, the current system is working fine and is currently used in 3 CCSD schools. Two, the contract describes the training as 2 days online, which I do not feel will be sufficient, and the current model meets periodically and is readily available. Three, buy-in for the new program is for certain employees to be trained, whereas all employees with the current program is trained. Four, lastly, it is not cost-effective to go from $40,000 to $80,000. It's concerning as a taxpayer and a community member. Why send money out of state when a local program can do the job at a lesser rate? Finally, restorative justice works as an intricate part of the school system and requires significant support from trained personnel that can be readily available and who are invested in our community. I seek your support for our students. Please vote no on the IIRP contract and consider Georgia Conflict Center. Thank you for your time. Jacelyn S. Brown. Excuse me, it's Jacqueline. I just noted that, Ms. Jacqueline S. Brown. The next letter is from Ms. Caroline Sharkey. Dear CCSD Board, I'm reaching out as one of the few members of the CCSD community with extensive experience in restorative practices. In fact, I was a longtime director and teacher in an urban school that implemented restorative practices as its foundational approach to addressing student accountability, conflict, and discipline, and carried out these practices for more than 40 years. Beginning in 2001, I joined that school, which was located in the community with enough similarities to Athens to make a comparative connection, and spent more than the next decade facilitating restorative practices alongside students, and I learned some key things in this process. First, the people that struggle to adjust to restorative practices are not the students typically. Even those who come from traditional public school backgrounds have been heavily influenced by the often unjust disciplinary measures, were able to adjust rather quickly. No, it was the educators and the parents who struggled to adapt to cultural differences and solving problems using a community model and the notion of accountability as a tool for healing. You're voting tonight to approve a bid from an organization that has made a proposal to train a group of future trainers for a widespread implementation of restorative practices in the district. This flies in the face of the recommendations made by the Georgia Conflict Center, which has spent 4 years working intentionally with 4 schools to embed restorative practices and carefully measure the impact it has had on those school communities. As a board member for GCC, I helped to shape the recommendations that CCSD consider extensive training for anyone identified as a trainer in the restorative practices and be involved for a minimum of a year in the actual use of the model, such as it is as established in 4 CCSD schools. To train the trainer without this foundation is more than concerning. It undermines the very principles of restorative practices and overlooks the tremendous risk of swift implementation of a framework that requires attending to the sensitive nature of making such a big cultural shift and the lack of policy to support the implementation of a totally new way of addressing discipline in schools. I'm writing to you as an educator, as a social worker, and as a researcher in restorative practices in urban communities whose 25 years of working with youth affords me some level of expertise. We have seen too many programs and curricula in CCSD, expensive programs that prioritize training instead of true change at the ground levels come and go. To pay twice the amount for an outside organization to come in and train the trainers without laying the foundation and alignment of restorative justice principles is careless. To accept that proposal over the Georgia Conflict Center's less expensive and more cautious proposal after years of working with the CCSD and the deep commitment to make restorative practices a core and permanent fixture in the district's educational culture is downright insulting. The next letter comes from Jamie Howard Mays. Good afternoon. I'm writing to you as the mother of a 5-year-old child that fell through the cracks last year. We unenrolled after attempting virtual schooling in October last year as it wasn't developmentally appropriate and was causing my small child to hate school. His birthday was late, and ultimately we decided to defer kindergarten a year for him. It was the best decision for our family. How can you even suggest that a policy may be in place for the fall that doesn't require masking of, at minimum, teachers who are still refusing the vaccine? We have made it nearly 15 months through a global pandemic without being infected, and Lord willing, we would be so grateful to get through the rest of the whole thing healthy. Deferring kindergarten a year made sense last year for my child, but we cannot do it again. Removing the possibility of a virtual option and choosing not to have a mask policy for the fall will leave my family with no choice but to not return in the fall. My child will not be going into spaces with exposure to unmasked, unvaccinated people until he is vaccinated. Please develop and communicate a policy that will address this glaring blind spot that the district has for unvaccinated adults on our campus and the unnecessary risk they pose by exposing children under 12 to this population. The pandemic left a lot of children fall through the cracks, the pandemic let a lot of children fall through the cracks. Removing the mask policy before these children can get vaccinated means CCSD is willfully pushing more children through the cracks. Thanks, Jamie Mays. The next letter is from Danny Malik. Good evening, CCSD school board members. I hope everyone is safe and well at this time. I'm writing to celebrate the district's decision to move forward with district-wide implementation of restorative practices. I hope that the advances that we have made with school-wide restorative practices implementation at Whit Davis, Clark Middle, and Clark Central have helped encourage you in this direction. I also want to express the concern about the train the trainers model the district has chosen. While IIRP is a well-recognized organization for its trainings, its own impact evaluations show that the results of its work have been mixed at best because it does not include a strong element of implementation support, but instead limits its interventions to trainings, monthly phone calls, or quarterly site visits only. The Georgia Conflict Center, based here in Athens, has been implementing restorative practices in CCSD schools since 2017. A detailed process evaluation of our work in 2 schools taught us some important lessons about doing work in Athens. Probably the biggest lesson has been the need for consistent, dedicated presence of a trained professional in the building. Implementing restorative practices is about systems and cultures change with time that teachers and administrators just don't have. Someone needs to prepare for restorative interventions, coordinate various levels of services and supports related to the restorative intervention, figure out how to work around teachers and parents' schedule to make the time for these conversations, and do the needed follow-up to ensure behavior change. For these reasons, we strongly recommend the district reconsider a stronger focus on the implementation support. Rather than a trainer course, GCC proposed an incremental approach to implementation at each participating school, including the formation of a restorative culture leadership team, intensive training, and strategic planning with the RCLT resulting in a strategic implementation plan for the upcoming school year, school-wide training, as well as technical assistance, coaching, and monitoring and evaluation support throughout the year from local Athens-based practitioners and experts. I urge you to reconsider the train-the-trainer model for RP implementation. I suggest that CCSD build on the ongoing work and expertise at Whit Davis, CMS, and Clark Central. Just 2 years ago, CCSD consultant Dr. Richard Welsh recommended to the district to prioritize the highest need schools by investing in staff with a dedicated focus on restorative practices. I support Dr. Welsh's recommendation and believe that the model already being implemented in some CCSD schools will have the greatest impact for good over time in our district. Thank you for your time and consideration.
This is from Alice M. Willman. Dear Dr. Thomas, Dr. Gant, and board members, I am writing regarding your vote tomorrow on pursuing a train the trainers model for restorative practices. In addition to being the proud parent of 2 CCSD students, I am also a professional in the field of violence prevention and very familiar with the literature on restorative justice. My question for you, as you discuss tomorrow, is what is the objective for investing in restorative justice in CCSD schools, and what is the evidence a train the trainer model with IIRP will achieve this? The organization CCSD has chosen for the trainings, IIRP, has a well-known prepackaged set of trainings it has deployed across the USA. Its program consists of 4 days of staff training over 2 years, 1 phone call a month with the IIRP rep, and advice from an IIRP facilitator on how to set up a monthly working group for staff. IIRP's work has been evaluated by the RAND Corporation twice, in Pittsburgh and in Maine public schools. I'm sure you will have read the research. In the impact evaluations of IIRP's model in Maine public schools, no significant impact was documented on the desired outcomes of school connectedness, bullying victimization, or student development outcomes. The Maine study noted that the IIRP restorative practices intervention in this study delivered only a modest amount of restorative practices experiences, an amount not much different than controlled schools received, and that there is a strong need for implementation support. The study of IIRP's work in Pittsburgh public schools yielded very mixed findings. While there were reductions in suspensions, on average, though the difference was not statistically significant, and teachers reported a more positive school climate, arrest rates for students remained constant, and academic outcomes were worse in schools that received IIRP support. Like the main evaluation, this also specifies that a lack of implementation support likely limited the reach of the intervention. This is not to say that IIRP does not deliver good trainings. They do. However, their trainings are general rather than adapted to the specific challenges of particular schools. What's more, IIRP is not going to be around when teachers have a question or when admin are strapped for time to respond to a behavior incident. If we are serious about transformative change in CCSD, the district needs to invest in trained staff in each building who have a dedicated focus on building restorative culture in schools. Without that, a training is just a training, and you will be adding more work to school staff who already have limited time. You are doubtless also aware of the advice Dr. Richard Welsh has offered for our district, which specifies that schools should implement restorative justice through a dedicated RJ coordinator presence in each school and a focus on implementation in order to reach the goals of increasing students' time in class and eliminating racial disparities in discipline. The evidence shows us clearly that training is not enough for the culture change we need in our district. This is from Leslie Johnson. Good evening. I would like to express my opinion on the recommendation of using a train the trainer model to implement restorative practices in CCSD. For the last 3 years, I've been involved in the implementation of restorative practices at Whit Davis. The data shows that our suspensions have decreased, but more importantly, we have also seen an increased sense of belonging for students, which leads to greater engagement, more time in the classroom, and better academic achievement. Our school has relied on our grant funds from LSGT for our program, and I was heartened to see that the district is allocating funds to implement restorative practices across the district. This is an important step in creating positive environments in schools and ensuring equitable access to learning for all students. Unfortunately, I was dismayed to learn that district leaders chose a model where the trainers only received 2 days of online training before then training others. Research has shown again and again that effective professional development for teachers takes time and provides ongoing support from experts in the field. Teachers already receive far too much professional development that does not change practices. For the 15 years that I've taught in CCSD, I've sat through countless PD courses and watched as funds have been spent on programs and materials that are cast aside a year or two down the road. Expecting trainers to develop expertise through a 2-day online course and then provide ongoing support to teachers is an unrealistic expectation that may ultimately lead to the failure of implementation of restorative practices. Throughout our implementation at Whit Davis, we have had to change our approach based on the needs of our students and teachers. Having a site-based restorative coordinator has been instrumental in understanding how to adjust what we are doing. The need to move to restorative practices in our schools is urgent. In fact, it is too urgent to rush. If the district moves forward with this watered-down proposal to get restorative practices into as many schools as we can, as fast as we can, we run the risk that it will be yet another failed initiative that falls by the wayside after a couple of years. Voting no to this proposal does not mean that you are voting no to restorative practices. In fact, saying no to this proposal and giving our district leaders a chance to more closely examine the successes of restorative practices in schools in our district and choose a better implementation model will actually result in a higher chance of the long-term implementation of restorative practices. Please consider these thoughts as you make your decisions this evening. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Leslie Johnson. This is from Jared 44. I was born and raised in Athens, Georgia, and attended College Ave School, Athens High, and graduated from the University of Georgia. My family still owns an 1891 home in Athens that was purchased by my grandfather, who had died many years before I was born. I believe in preserving history and learning from the past. I do not believe in tearing down the former elementary school on Broad Street. I never attended that school, but my sister taught elementary schools there in the late 1960s and early 1970s. To plan for the future requires us to learn from the past. That building could serve a dual purpose as a museum and as an early learning center. I've been fortunate to have been able to travel in the United States and in many countries in Europe. Most of the sites I journeyed to see were historic sites. The United States is wrong in thinking that something that is old is outdated and not relevant to modern life. In Europe, these sites are preserved and their significance is documented. That should be the case of this Athens landmark. Oh, Christine Paradney. That was from Christine Paradney. From Alexander Holland to the board of the Clark County School District. During my 5 years in the Clark County School District, the state of the bathrooms has been a problem that is openly talked about but never fixed. I have heard countless students say that they would rather hold it for hours than use the school bathrooms. This is not just a matter of convenience, it is a matter of student health and safety. Holding in your urine can cause incontinence, urinary tract infections, and other bladder issues. Something needs to be done if students are willing to take these risks over using a school bathroom. In my personal experience, the bathrooms at Cedar Shoals High School have major issues. Most stalls have no locks, many have no doors, there are no mirrors, often there's no toilet paper or paper towels, and in general, they are extremely unsanitary. Students will also use the bathroom as a place to partake in illicit activities such as fighting, gambling, vaping, and smoking marijuana. This means that the bathrooms are not only unclean, but viewed as unsafe by many students in the school. This issue is relatively unique to Clark County. As a member of the marching band, I visited many schools in the surrounding area, namely Oconee, North Oconee, Jefferson, Winder Barrow, and Madison County. All of these are public schools, yet none of them have this problem. They all possess bathrooms that are both relatively clean and functional. It has come to my attention that the district has been awarded $48 million to spend on its students, and I cannot think of a more pragmatic usage of it than fixing the bathrooms. With just a fraction of that money, you could fix the stalls, paint the walls, install mirrors, and make sure that bathroom tissue is always available. These minor fixes would provide a major improvement in student life. I hope that you will consider these suggestions and take actions to fix the bathrooms for the sake of the students across the district. Sincerely, Alex Holland, Cedar Shoals Jr. Is that this is me? Okay. Beverly Van Tyne. This is from Beverly Van Tyne. Hi, I am a mom of a rising first grader at Barnett Shoals Elementary. This district already has a great deal of educational disparities amongst students, and this past COVID year has enhanced these disparities. Not only do those at the bottom need to be lifted, the ones at the top need to be enriched. My son is lucky and is not one of the ones falling behind, but he is one of the ones at the top who isn't getting challenged. He's in the process of being tested for the gifted program, but right now he's right in at the line, so I'm not sure which way it will go. However, there must be something offered in between being top of the class, but yet not gifted enough. Using the COVID assistance funding to add parapros and other support staff in each K through 5 classroom for the next few years at minimum to close the gaps and enrich the curriculum is a must. I do not want to white flight to a private school. I want to stay with CCSD, but enrichment and enhancement needs to be a priority. Bottom line, in my opinion, the additional COVID funding that's being received needs to be directed to parapros, summer teaching, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and custodians. Renovating/adding administrative buildings or more admin staff in a central office would not be good use of the money. All attention needs to be given to our district scholars. Sincerely, a concerned mom who feels strongly that equal attention needs to be given to the bottom so those scholars can be lifted to success and a hopeful future. As well, to those who are already excelling so they can be challenged with age-appropriate academic vigor to be better prepared for the possibilities ahead.
This next letter is from Emily Krim. What provisions are being put in place to protect high-risk elementary students for this upcoming school year? Not allowing any virtual option while also dropping a mask mandate for the only group of children that are served by our public schools that are not yet eligible for COVID vaccines seems short-sighted. Could short-term virtual options or mask mandates be implemented at least until the point in time where this youth population is eligible for vaccination? By not providing a safer option for children that are high risk, you are ultimately forcing some families to have to withdraw their children from the local schools they attend. Thank you, Emily Krim. This letter is from Jennifer Berkowitz. Good evening, CCSD board members. I have recently completed my first year as a CCSD teacher after spending 15 years as a special education teacher in Jackson County. I am super excited that this county wants to embrace restorative practices on a county-wide level and wanted to write to you about that. I want to share part of my thoughts on what the Georgia Conflict Center can provide, as I have benefited from it greatly this past year at Whit Davis. From a hiring/retention of staff standpoint, it is worth noting that one of the reasons I chose to work at Whit Davis and not another school in another county or another school in Clark County is because of the focus on restorative practices. I have also successfully recruited someone from my previous school to Whit Davis next year, in large part due to the focus on restorative approaches. This is no small act. I believe that the chance we have of making schools different for our students than they have historically been is by embracing a restorative culture. Restorative cultures are not built by a train-the-trainer module. They are built from the very ground up by supporting the individuals that support the students that we hope to help the most. Unless the teachers at the base level, ground floor, have the support that they need, which the Georgia Conflict Center has been excellent in providing at Whit Davis, restorative justice will only have sporadic success and will not lead to real system-wide changes. The hearts and minds of people have to be changed to show what a difference this type of approach can make, not just for the lives of our students, but for the lives of the teachers that teach them. This requires diligent work in our schools in person every day that the Georgia Conflict Center is capable of providing and has been providing at my school. I strongly believe that the Georgia Conflict Center is best suited to support the district to move forward the work of restorative practices in CCSD, given their experience in working with schools in this county and expertise in restorative practices implementation as a whole. They are right here in Athens and can support teachers and staff on the ground level in Clark County and can help us shift to real lasting change. Thank you so much for considering what I have to say. Sincerely, Jennifer Berkowitz. And this is the last letter from Lauren Knowlton. Good evening, board members. I have been a teacher and librarian at Whit Davis Elementary for 7 years, and during the last 3 of those years, I have been a member of the Restorative Culture Leadership Team. I am also the step parent of a rising sophomore at Clark Central. This spring, I was very excited to learn that our district had decided to move forward with expanding restorative practices throughout the district. Throughout the last 3 years, and especially over the last year, I have witnessed firsthand some of the payoffs of implementing restorative practices in our schools. This has been true for all involved parties, the students, teachers, administrators, and families. I feel that these sorts of practices should be more widespread in our district, and thus I'm very enthusiastic about this prospect. I learned yesterday morning of the district's decision to go with an out-of-state organization to meet these new goals. I must confess, I don't understand the reasoning behind this. I am confused and also upset that the Georgia Conflict Center is not the organization who will be helping us expand and enhance these practices in our district. I am asking for more transparency for CCSD teachers, staff, and community stakeholders so that we may better understand the reasoning behind this decision. At Whit Davis, I have had extremely positive experiences with Danny Malik and the other GCC staff members who came in to assist with listening circles and other hands-on activities to reinforce our school's professional development. From my own personal experience, I can assert that it would be beneficial and indeed is absolutely necessary for a local organization to conduct this training so they can respond quickly to the immediate needs of our teachers, students, and community stakeholders. For those of us with a few years of restorative practices under our belt, we have learned how complex this process is for all involved. It sounds to me like the International Institute of Restorative Practices relies on a one-shot train-the-trainer program to get their message across. But I fear this strategy will be inadequate, undermining this new initiative and shortchanging CCSD stakeholders in the long run. I urge the school board members to reconsider this decision if at all possible. If this is not possible, then please be more transparent about the selection process and help us understand why the district decided to go with the International Institute of Restorative Practices over the GCC. Thank you for your time and consideration. Lauren Knowlton.
Thank you all for your assistance with reading those letters, and thank you to those that sent in feedback. We will move forward with the board president's remarks. I think I shared everything, most of the things I needed to share last week. There were only two things I think that have come up since then. One is Dr. Dykeman, I think she sent out an email about dates for a call meeting. And so if you haven't spoken with her, Dr. Dykeman, I think in that email, you had a specific date or a week?
We had talked about sometime the week of June 21st.
Okay, and so while we're all together, could we go ahead and confirm a time to meet that week so that we're not having to figure that out after we leave? Or at least let Dr. Dykeman know what dates and times absolutely will not work. If you have not already replied back.
I think that wasn't the question of, several of us responded that during the lunch hour would work for us.
Okay.
And others, I don't think responded at all. So I wonder, do we have enough information about availability?
No, I only have 3 people who have responded.
Are we gonna pull out our calendars now?
If you could. And yeah, so we can just confirm a date while we're here, so we won't have to.
And just to reiterate, the purpose of this meeting will be not to talk about the performance measures for the next year's evaluation, which is what we started talking about today during the strategic plan discussion. That will be a meeting that will happen later in the summer to nail down everything for next year's evaluation. This is actually a meeting to talk about the current / year that just ended evaluation. We were talking about the week of the 21st as a possibility.
Dr. Dykeman, was there a specific day that you could maybe suggest, and that way it may be a little bit easier for us to...
I can defer to Dr. Thomas. I think that she said that.
We were talking during the lunch hour, was that correct?
A couple of people have mentioned that, but I don't know if that's good for everybody.
I can be flexible any day that week. I have meetings throughout, but be pretty free during the lunchtime. And the ones where I have conflicts, they can be moved.
Okay.
I can do everything except Monday, and unless the GSBA assembly is on the 23rd, so
Okay.
that would be the other day I cannot do it.
So that's Wednesday, the
Right.
23rd.
Mornings are better for me because I'll be on the West Coast and I have all day stuff going on. So early mornings on the West Coast. So like between 8 and 11. Lunch hour is getting kind of late for me because I'll be, noon is 9. So I've already started my day with what I'm doing. So earlier, I have a 3-hour advantage. So before 11 would be great, or at least before 12.
I'm available anytime.
I would like to propose the 22nd.
You would like to what?
Propose the
Oh,
22nd.
okay. That's Tuesday.
And I can do the earliest, the earliest I would be able to do would be around 11.
Would the 22nd work?
Mhm.
Are there other conflicts with Tuesday, the 22nd at 11 o'clock?
What about Thursday? Could you do Thursday?
I'm scheduled for all-day mediation, but don't let me be the holdup. I can pop in,
Well,
but
and
I
I
don't
don't need
know.
to be the holdup either, so.
So possibilities are Tuesday, the 22nd at 11, or Thursday, the 24th, also at 11.
Or Friday?
Pick one, let's
I
see.
can't do Fridays this summer.
Okay, so just like pick one between those,
Okay.
Dr. Dykeman and Dr. Thomas. You want to go ahead and confirm one between that Tuesday and Thursday?
I will defer to Dr. Dykeman.
Don't defer to me. You're way busier
Either
than I
day.
am.
Tuesday at 11
Alright.
works best.
Right,
What?
for either day, I'm gonna have to
Tuesday
move
at 11
something,
works.
so it doesn't matter.
Tuesday,
Oh,
okay.
Tuesday doesn't work for you. And doesn't work for you? Okay. Okay.
Okay, does Thursday work for you, Ms. Davis?
GSBA.
I thought that's not Wednesday.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's Wednesday. Never mind. Thursday's good after 10.
Okay.
Okay, so
So let's
Thursday,
say Thursday, June 24th at 11 a.m.
for, I guess it would be considered a call meeting for an executive session for personnel.
Okay.
All right, thank you all very much. And then the only other thing that I actually forgot to mention in my list of things last week was that we probably need to decide when we would like to begin to open up the meetings for the public to come back. And I don't know what the parameters would be around that. I mean, I would leave that to the district to determine based on the CDC guidelines. But wanted to not spend too long talking about that, but like get at least your thoughts about that. Are we moving towards that in August? Or are we, July's retreat, September, nothing right now. What are you all's thoughts?
Can you use your mic?
I wonder if we could hold off for a couple of months or a month at least to make sure that the numbers are going to remain stable and, and we don't have a fourth wave, so to speak.
You mean a month after school starts?
No, before school starts. I don't want to make that decision about going back in person. I would like to suggest that we don't make that decision until closer to the beginning of the school year. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Is that
It
what you're
does.
asking?
Yep. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
just
okay.
trying to get an idea of where the board is with that decision, when the public will be allowed back, and like I said, the district will determine the parameters, but just trying to get a feel, since in July we'll be online for our meeting, and then it'll be the beginning of school start for August.
We have a July meeting?
our retreat.
Oh, okay.
When does school start?
First week of August.
First week of August. I mean, just tentatively, I would throw out, have the work session maybe virtual and the meeting open to the public, in August. Ideally doing it in conjunction with the opening of school.
Why would we do the work session virtual?
I was just trying to split the difference. I'm just, compromise. I mean,
You mean as far as being open to the public being
Right.
virtual? Okay.
right.
Because we
Oh,
do
okay,
have
okay.
people that come to the work session too, and
Okay,
the regular meetings.
okay.
Is that what I'm
Yeah.
understanding?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Dr. Anderson mentioned holding off to make the decision in August, right? Okay.
Or even at that work session in the 1st of September. I mean, the work session in August. But there is one other thing on your agenda.
Okay. I wanted to
Okay.
hear from if
Yeah.
there were any other thoughts around this.
I was just to say, don't kill me. I could do Tuesday, the 22nd at 11. I didn't have my glasses on. There was a question mark beside it, and I just saw the question mark, and I can get rid of it. I'm sorry. You can't do Tuesday? All right. Sorry.
Are there any other thoughts around what has been shared with meeting, inviting the public back, Ms. Davis, Dr. Maddox, Dr. Dykeman, Dr. Yeager? Okay. Is it,
Agree.
Okay.
I like our work sessions in person. I feel like it's a lot better as far as our exchange and our discussion. So that's it.
yeah, and nothing will change about us meeting. We are only talking about allowing the public to return
I got
so
it
that then
now.
they can start reading their letters and they can just, participate in the,
Got it.
Yeah,
So
or
whatever
observe
Dr.
the meeting.
Anderson says,
what was that?
whatever Dr. Anderson says.
Okay, all right. But yes, to be clear, our meetings, we're still here. So I think what I hear general consensus around is using that August work session to make that determination.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Ms. Davis, you look like you were in thought or, yeah.
No,
Okay.
no, I'm.
Ms. Davis, okay. All right.
Again, I'm looking for a recommendation from the superintendent because they're still monitoring all of the data. And if we're making our decisions based on data, then I'm good with that.
Dr. Thomas, you have some additional
I'm going to
perspectives to
discuss
share?
data as soon as I get to my report.
Okay, all right. I think that's it, but Mr. Davis told me I had something else.
Yeah, wasn't put out as an agenda item separately, but we were going to finalize the committee's membership. Because Ms. Davis was saying that,
I thought we did that on.
well, no, what we did was, we didn't vote on it.
Right, I thought, did we not include it on here? I thought it was inside of,
And there may be some last minute changes, hopefully.
It's not in the policy.
you're right, we did discuss last week, I think when we got Mr. Pruitt's perspective that we were going to take a vote on that, and it's not on here. Any guidance on that, Mr. Pruitt? It was a part of our work session. All right.
I move we add it to the agenda.
Okay. We're at now or later under the action. I think there were some other action items.
I think we can do it right now,
Okay,
if you're done with your report.
I am done. So Dr.
move-
Yeager made a motion. Ms. Davis second the motion? Okay. Any questions around that? All right. So all in favor of adding that to our agenda If you would show by raising your hands and saying aye,
Aye.
and any opposed, the same sign. All right, so we will go ahead and look at our committee and take action on that.
So I have notes from who's on which committee.
And
from
I
last week.
think
Do you want me
Ms.
to read
Palmer
those?
updated it for us. I had it pulled up here, actually. Let's see.
So I was actually going to, I know I should have done this at the work session, but after looking at some of the agenda items for the Government and Community Relations Committee for the upcoming year, I'd really like to move up to that committee, but I know that that will bring the Accountability Committee down to 2 members. So I don't know if that's a kind thing to do.
Well, I think we mentioned that we do probably need about 3 people on the committees for them to work effectively.
You can be on too.
Yeah, would you like to be on too?
No,
Oh,
I
well.
don't think I have the time, y'all.
All
We
right.
meet a lot, which is good. I like it.
What was that?
It's just, I don't know if I can do a lot.
Yeah, I think it was just the 2 that we were trying to avoid.
Okay.
Any ideas before we take action on it?
I feel bad.
Does anyone want to wait? Okay, hold on. Let's see. Dr. Anderson, you're wanting to go to.
I'll do both. I'll do both for the year, and then we can.
We'll
we
keep
can
the
figure
demands
this
on you
out.
from.
It's okay.
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 Oh, so are
Yeah,
you
well,
going to, you
let's
want to be,
I'll do
okay.
two. I'll do two.
Ms. Palmer, can you add Dr. Anderson to the government and community relations also? So she's doing 2. And generally, these decisions will be made in January anyway. So it's
Yeah.
about a 6-month term that you'll be serving before we revisit it again. It just took a little bit longer this year because of policy and things like that.
Okay.
All right. Well, okay, if all hearts and minds are clear, is there a motion to adopt our current
moved.
committees?
So moved.
Okay, Dr. Yeager
Second.
and Dr. Maddox made a second. Any questions or further discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting the current committee list before us, if you would say aye and raise your hands. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, the same sign. Okay, that motion carries. We'll move forward to item 6, and this is a superintendent's report. Dr. Thomas?
Thank you, Dr. Gant. I only have one item, and it does relate to our return to school plans. And we know there's been some conversation in the media, some articles that aren't 100% accurate. So I wanted just to provide an update on where we are. Our CCSD COVID response team continues to meet weekly to ensure that we're monitoring our local numbers and following CDC and DPH recommendations in our schools. As you likely remember, we've been monitoring 14-day trends of cases per 100,000, as well as our positivity rate, and looking at other community indicators and our ability to implement mitigation measures. As of June 9th, the Georgia DPH reports that Clark County has 21 cases per 100,000 over the last 14 days, which is a significant decline for us. And our current positivity rate is 1.4%. Yes, so the CDC reports that Clark County had 15 new cases in the last 7 days, and less than 1% of our ICU beds are now in use due to COVID. Notably, since the start of the summer session, we have had 0 cases of COVID-19 reported in our summer schools and Clark County schools since we started back. So that's very encouraging. We're really excited about that. Now, despite those trends, we are continuing to acknowledge that COVID is still present in our community. We recognize the importance of mitigation measures. During summer school, all individuals who are not fully vaccinated, that's 14 days post their second dose, are being asked to wear a mask while they're indoors. Given that the vaccine is not yet available for children under 12 years old, that would include that we're asking all of our elementary students to wear masks. Although it's not required, it is strongly requested, and our students have been very compliant. They are wearing their masks, so we have not had any issues with using the language that was adapted based on the most recent guidance from our governor. So our elementary schools, our students are wearing their masks without any issues. Our summer mask guidelines are working well, actually, in all of our schools. One change that we have made at this time is to allow fully vaccinated individuals the option of not wearing a mask while they're indoors. That is also congruent with our CDC guidelines, and it applies to our staff as well as our students who are over age of 12, because that's the age, as you all know, where we are starting to have, the government has allowed us to start having vaccinations. We're also continuing to implement additional mitigation measures in our buildings, including continuing physical distancing, emphasizing hand hygiene, respiratory etiquette, in-house contact tracing. Our CCSD transportation department is still requiring that all students on our buses have a mask on, regardless of their vaccination status. They have to wear a mask while they're on the bus. Right now, these guidelines are applying only to our summer program. As we're working to develop guidelines for the 21-22 school year, we will announce those when they're finalized. Right now, what we're doing is just using our summer program as a way to assess what is working, what we need to modify, and seeing how effective we're being in that area, as well as looking at other mitigation factors as we make decisions to return as safely as possible back in August. So that's where we are, and I wanted to provide that update because some of what's been printed and posted does not exactly align with this level of accuracy. So we wanted to provide this, and we will give an update. We're meeting again weekly, continuing to meet as a COVID team, and we will get our next level of recommendations out to you all next month. That concludes my report. Yes, sir.
Not to say the same thing I said last time, but I just, is it, we're going to have new teachers hired. We're going to have, visitors and that type of thing. Is it too early to kind of make plans to have, like a day where we kind of advertise? I know we're doing shots all the time, but in terms of having a big hootenanny of vaccinations.
Nurse Amy Rourke organizes all of that within her department. So I can't speak definitively to what the next levels are. I can say with certainty that this is something she has stayed on top of consistently since day one. And I'm confident that she will, I don't know if that will be in conjunction with our new teacher orientation, if it's induction day, when it will be, but I know that's something that she has worked hand in hand with DPH on, CDC on, but specifically with DPH. And I'm confident that she will continue to do that as she has done before. We have been very active and aggressive in working in the community, working with our partners to have events. And I don't doubt that she's going to stop that. I'm looking at my phone because I just got some good news, let me see, from her. And of course, I won't find it now. She was actually just elected as the Georgia State Director for the National Association of School Nurses. So that is, so I don't doubt that she's doing it. And I trust our folks to do their work. And she has done it. And I am 100% confident that she's going to continue to do work in that area. So.
Okay. And this may be the last time I can officially ask you, but if, we always have kind of a big blowout when to get where the superintendent has a kind of a big show someplace. Have we thought much about that? Are we going to do something differently this year?
Big show. Are you talking about like
an assembly with all the staff,
like the kickoff coming back? We will not have a big face-to-face show, but we are going to have a big virtual show. Tevin and team, and working with Dr. Porter and Mr. Harris, are working on an amazing virtual production. We're having skits from different departments. We're having sharing of our strategic plan. So we will have a big virtual show, but we were not comfortable bringing 2,500 people in one space as we're transitioning back off of a pandemic. So, yes, sir. So we will have a show, and you will be given access to tune in, Mr. Davis. You may even get a guest acting part. Who knows? Or maybe I'll be you.
I will.
That would be more fun. That concludes my report.
Okay. Any additional questions, Ms. Davis? Did you have a question? Any others for Dr. Thomas?
It's not. Sorry. It's not a question, but kind of piggybacking off of what Greg said about a vaccination sort of draw or event. Just potentially consider like a testing event too for the students before school starts, like they did at Chase, but on a bigger scale would be good probably. There might be some asymptomatic children out there. Not that I know.
All right, we're going to move forward with our financial report. Dr. Thomas?
Yes, ma'am. It's my recommendation that the report as presented last week from Mr. Schooneman be accepted.
So moved.
Okay, Dr. Yeager made a motion, Ms. Davis a second. Any follow-up questions for Dr. Thomas or Mr. Schooneman? All right, all in favor of accepting the financial report, if you would say aye and raise your hands. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So April financial report is accepted. We'll move forward to 8. These are our policy regulations, exhibits to be posted for 4 weeks for public comments. Are there any?
I have heard no other concerns other than what was expressed on Thursday. I did have a conversation with Mr. Harris, a policy committee, and how we will handle if the district decides to change regulations. If we pass this policy and give up the option to pass regulations, Mr. Harris and I have confirmed that they will always inform the policy committee of any changes to regulations. And he also expressed willingness, if there are a handful of regulations that we want to go back and revisit and pull some of the details of those regs into a new policy, I would commit and he would commit to doing that work this fall.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's for 8.1 and 8.2. Mr. Davis, did you have a question?
Just real quick, is it possible to, as a friendly amendment, add what you just said into BDC?
Well, it's in there that the district will inform the policy committee.
Okay.
It's in there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, all right, the floor is open for a motion. Okay, and Ms. Hill, could you specify, is it for 8.1 and 8.2?
Yes.
All right, so Ms. Hull made a motion. Is there a second?
So what is that policy BDC again? What's the name of that
So
one?
BDC is policy adoption and
Okay, good.
the revision. Okay, you got it. Okay.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
then 8.2 is the 3 policies, JGF2, IFBD, and IFBD reg, which the IFBD is the media center, and the JGF2 is the revised seclusion and restraint policy.
All right, and so Dr. Anderson, you made a second, right? All right. Any additional questions? Discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting 8.1 and 8.2 to be posted for public comment, if you would raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, so those pass. We'll move to the policies to be adopted before July 1st. Dr. Yeager, and I'm going to sort of put some context here. We've had some robust conversations, so I do want to limit the time that we spend talking about this, because if we do, then we need to probably do it in some other form. It needs to be a call or special meeting. Okay, Dr. Yeager?
So I'm delighted to present to you 9.1, which is a revised teacher evaluation appeal policy, which I put together based on the discussion that I heard through the phone, difficultly, but the best I could. I did not incorporate the split tier that y'all were talking about right at the end because I couldn't figure out how to do it well and not have legal problems. So you'll see in this policy that we've incorporated most of the changes recommended by the teachers. And I understand Dr. Blankenship is okay with this. So if you'd like to say a few words, Dr. Blankenship.
Yes, you may.
Well, good evening again. I would just like to say that we believe this is a very reasonable way forward to incorporate the public feedback that was given and to provide for that third level of appeal, to address the board's desire to have a part in that appeal process, and to also address the board's concern by some members that they might not be qualified in terms of TEKS credentialing to make decisions. So this sort of incorporates all of that concern and desire, and we feel like it's a policy that we can implement.
Thank you, Dr. Blankenship. I appreciate your willingness to work with us.
Okay, Ms. Davis?
Thank you. I just have one comment, and again, several calls on this one, but the one that I think was very exciting to me was from the manufacturing industry, and they suggested that rather than involve the school board in a third level of appeal, that would become a peer review as an appeal. And again, because the peers are already intimately involved with the work and the workers, they felt like that would be a more just way to address that third level if necessary. And I wanted to make that offer as an amendment.
So that fits perfectly well within this policy as written, because I did add the sentence that said the board may appoint a panel to review the appeal and make a recommendation to the board for the final decision. So that's a great idea. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. And I just want to take it out of the board's hands and let the work on that appeal outside of the board. That was my main thing. Because I still don't feel
Yeah,
strongly
so
that
there's
the board
still
should
got to
be a
have
part
to
of
be a
that.
regulation for how we go about it. Yeah. Thank you.
I feel, again, am I wrong here? Is it not a law that we don't do operational things as a board? Am I interpreting that incorrectly?
That's been the rule from Sachs and Cognia and ACD, evaluation we've ever had.
Yeah, and so evaluations are operational. And so again, I'm saying just take the board out and let that third level be a peer review. Because I think, again, otherwise we're violating our own rules.
Again, I think this policy accommodates that request.
Okay, thank you. I will not be able to vote for this policy as written in.
Can I just get a clarification? So with the last sentence, the board may appoint a panel to review the appeal and make a recommendation to the board for the final decision. So what does that process look like? Will the board still have the final say as what happens?
What I heard in the discussion last week, and I know we shouldn't be talking too much more,
I just
but
want
I heard
clarification. I don't wanna debate it.
what I thought was a majority of people saying that they wanted the board to be where the buck stopped. So that's why I put that in.
And I just wanted for clarification before I vote. So there will be a recommendation, but that recommendation will be given to the board, and the board will then make a final decision on that recommendation.
That's
whether
how
to
it
accept-
stands right now.
Okay.
Ideally, in my mind, and I think in all of our minds of those who've worked on this, we won't ever get to this level.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Okay.
And I think HR has that same goal. So
Thank you. I just wanted to know.
Dr. Anderson, did you have a question?
No.
Okay, a comment? Dr. Maddox?
Ready to vote?
Okay, all right. Any additional information? Okay, we have a motion? Do we have a motion for?
I move we adopt because it has to be adopted. I move that we adopt 9.1.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All of those in favor, if you would say aye.
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 Okay. All of those opposed, if you would say aye. Aye. Okay, so that motion passes. Policy GBIA with the updated information. Thank you for your you all's work on that. We'll move forward to item 9.2, and this is policy GARHB.
And I've had no concerns or comments expressed about this in the past week.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion on the floor for GARHB?
I move we adopt policy GARHB as written.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion from Dr. Yeager, a second from Mr. Davis. Any follow-up questions?
I wanted to just ask one really, really quick question. So at the GSBA policy session today, they talked about this policy a lot and mentioned that from an HR perspective, it's going to be very interesting to kind of tease apart FMLA, sick leave, and this new paid parental leave. And so I just kind of wanted to make sure that we kind of understand that this might come back as some things that we will have to figure out how to resolve from an HR perspective, with kind of teasing apart those three things and making sure that the paid parental leave falls in the right bucket. And that was discussed a lot at today's session. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there as like I told you, I'm telling you now, so that when it comes back over, we know.
I'll be happy to look at it when it comes back around.
Okay. Thank you for that additional information. So we have policy GARHB. Do we have a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of adopting the GARHB parental leave, if you would raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. So we'll move forward to 9.3, and this is policy IDE 1, competitive interscholastic activities. Dr.
And
Yeager?
again, I've had no comments or questions since last Thursday.
Okay.
So I move we adopt as written IDE 1.
Okay, so Dr. Yeager made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Dr. Anderson. Any follow-up questions or discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting policy 9.3 policy IDE 1, if you would show by raising hands and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. We will move forward to item 10, and these are all of our policies, 1 through 19. 10.1, policies to be adopted, rescinded, revised, or reviewed.
Again, no public comments or concerns or questions from anyone since Thursday.
Okay, perfect. All right, the floor is open for a motion.
I move that we adopt, rescind, revise as described these 19 policies.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion by Dr. Yeager, a second by Ms. Hull. Any follow-up questions? All right, all in favor of adopting these policies, if you would say aye and raise your hands.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. We are at the item 11, which replaced the previous items, and that is for executive session. The floor is open for a motion.
Second.
Who was that? Was that Dr. Anderson? Okay, Dr. Anderson made a motion. Dr. Maddox second. And so this motion specifically, just to confirm, is to enter into executive session to let me get which one right. I think it would be 1. No, that's superintendent. Where am I, Mr. Pruitt? Discuss records, consult.
It's personnel.
Is it personnel? Oh, okay. First one, leave. Okay. All right. To discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, or dismissal or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent. And so that is what the motion was for. So we have a motion. Second, are there any questions about that or discussion? All right, all in favor of entering executive session for those reasons, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, all right, we will enter into executive session at 8:03 p.m.
Where are we going?
Oh, is, okay, you said 66? 66.